welcome to Policing TV, where I am joined by Sergeant Lee Broadbent of Greater Manchester Police. Lee, great to see you again. Last time we recorded something, we were walking in Greater Manchester with a wonderful backdrop over uh, part of Greater Manchester Police's ground, and we were talking primarily there about your work as chair of the Greater Manchester Police Federation and the work that you were doing on police pensions, which has since then, with that recording 2 years ago, since then has been very largely due to your efforts successfully resolved. So bring us up to speed on developments in that area over those last 2 years.
Yeah, so the as we discussed on our last meeting, and sorry for saying good morning, it's good to see you again. Um, the the pension challenges has largely resolved in that the officers that were involved in that initial challenge, brought with the law firm lead day, have received their compensation in terms of their injury to feelings. We're now in the final stages of remedy, and this is a little bit outside of our control somewhat. I mean, Lead Day still have a vested interest in making sure that remedy is applied in line with the declaration that was given in the Aaron case, and they are still monitoring the situation. But a lot of this now is government and administrative functioning in terms of trying to provide the complex changes that are required to bring officers um, materially back in line with where they should have been if they hadn't been discriminated against. So we're at a period now where remedy is being applied and there are contribution adjustments that need to be made, in that if you were in the 87 pension scheme, in order to get the full remuneration and be on a level playing field with what was those protected officers, you have been underpaying in your contribution, because when you were moved to the career average scheme, the contributions were less than they would have been if you had remained in your 87 pension. And so you are required to make a contribution adjustment in order to get your full benefits. Likewise, if you're in the '06 scheme, you've been paying more in terms of your contributions than you would have been if you were in your '06 scheme and you were due a refund. But there are certain tax implications and choice implications around that. But there's very, very good information on the National Police Chiefs Council's website. If you go to that, you'll be able to see a plethora of information on remedy. And I would encourage officers to visit their pension administrator's website, either directly or via the Force intranet link. And there'll be information on there in relation to what you need to do now in order to make that choice. It should be caveated that the choice doesn't have to be made immediately now. It can be made any year in the future up until the point that you retire, but there are certain conditions where you may face interest payments.
These are quite technical matters, and the
Yes.
explanation you've given will mean a lot to the people, to police officers who understand pension arrangements and
Yes.
understand which scheme they're in. And to the wider audience, this relates to a campaign that Lee led where pension arrangements had changed and others were not stepping up to challenge the inequity of those changes and the negative impact that it had had on a significant number of
Significant number.
serving police officers. So you were very much in the forefront of that campaign, and let's acknowledge that you to some degree, personally, were in the forefront of that campaign rather than the Police Federation itself. Explain
Yes.
a little bit more about that.
Well, like you touched on, I think we touched on it in the previous recording. The Police Federation were very much of the opinion at the time that the pension changes were of a benefit to a proportion of the membership over younger officers, so to speak. So some of the transitional protections that were afforded, which meant that a proportion of the membership didn't see any change to their pension, obviously led to a significant proportion of the membership suffering a detriment to their pension. And there was a balance to be had, and the Federation always fell on the side that actually, having engaged in the conversations, negotiations, if you can, if I want a better word, with the government, that they were happy that the transitional protections that were applied were lawful. Um, I was part of a group of officers who disagreed, and as I mentioned in the other recording that we did, at the time I felt I was a lone voice in contacting my MPs, in raising concerns, in writing to the federation, and in challenging some of these what were at the time, I didn't probably formulate the argument around an equalities argument, but it very much felt, and I'm always of the opinion that, in policing, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So follow your gut instinct, and it very much felt that what was happening was wrong. And there ought to have been something that was more paritable or equitable, because we've been through pension changes previously that hadn't had this significant impact on the membership, and ultimately we were able to bring people with us on those changes. Where on this occasion, we were unable to do that, and it felt like we were in a stalemate. And so, as we mentioned in the last one, I became instrumental, let's say, in formulating a campaign. One, to try and encourage our representative body to see some of the concerns that a broad body of the membership were feeling, and to encourage them to support us in bringing a challenge against the government. And as that went on, I started to research and get my head around the different nuances of the legislation, which was fairly complex. I brought in information from, let's say, from the other advisors' consultations with the firefighters. How would they responded to these changes? From the judiciary, how would they responded to these changes? In looking at them, how we'd responded, and it became evident when I looked at the judiciary's submission that they were arguing there was an element of age, sex, and race discrimination, primarily because the demographic of the workforce had changed so significantly since 1987 for the police's case, or 2016 for the police's case. And therefore, it kind of, the Newton light bulb moment went off in my head. And it was like, well, actually, if this has happened to the judiciary, who have been on a monumental drive to increase representation from ethnic minorities, from females, and from younger people into that service. The same is reflective in policing. So it was obvious that the arguments that judiciary were arguing in their consultation applied to us. And when I went back and revisited some of the information that the police negotiating board, as it was at the time, had put forward, those arguments didn't seem to play out. They didn't bear in to some of the negotiations that had gone on. And that's where we then cottoned on that there must be some sort of relatable challenge. So I went out and researched the demographic changes of the police service at the time, the proportion of changes in terms of ethnic minority, younger officers, female officers in comparison to older officers. I found that there hadn't been any equalities impact assessment done at the time. Collated all this information together, and along with another colleague, we went and presented it to a law firm who agreed with us and decided that yes, we did have a case.
Congratulations. There will be many police officers around the country who have you to thank for significant financial benefit in their pensions that they would not otherwise have had. And not all of them actually may realize that the the thanks are to you for your determination in that campaign. So on their behalf, may I congratulate you on the successful uh, delivery of that campaign and achieving its intended outcomes. Now,
Thank you.
you're not you're now at a point where nowhere near your full potential 30 years service. You are actually actively looking at leaving policing. Tell us
Yeah.
why that's the case.
Well, as you say, I'm nowhere near my potential service. As a member of the when I joined in 2006, the length of service had changed to 35 years, and it was always my commitment, because I'd wanted to be a police officer since, well, for as long as I can remember, if I'm honest. It was always my commitment to remain in police into the full term. However, having been so actively involved in this campaign, and having operated at a strategic level within the force as the chairman of Greater Manchester Police Federation, seen some of the changes over the 18-year service, I've looked under the bonnet and the engine. doesn't appear to be fixable from my perspective. Um,
So, but look, so you're looking to leave. You're not content in policing at the moment, and that's behind the question. What is it? You've talked about looked under the bonnet.
Yeah, there are a number of factors, but ultimately, if I'm going to be candid, ultimately, I don't feel that my values or my where I am in life now aligns to where policing is, and that's quite a sad it's quite a sad reality, and it's taken a lot of effort, personal effort, in fact, to confront that reality. Because I'm not somebody that likes to step away or give up if there's a challenge ahead of me, as I can probably demonstrably demonstrate from my previous activity. However, I think it's gone to a position for me personally, and because of my unique experiences in policing, having, like I said, having been a police officer for 18 years, having served diligently over that period, and having risen quite fortunately and with great gratitude to the member the police officers of Greater Manchester Police, representing them at a strategic level as their chair. Um, it's caused some damage along the way. And I don't feel anymore that, despite some of the qualities I have, I don't feel anymore that I would actually be supported or indeed um, advanced any further within the organisation, which is a sad reflection of where policing is, unfortunately. And so I think we do a very, very difficult job. We're taking huge amounts of risk, and we juggle many, many, many balls up in the air at the same time. And occasionally, as with any human being, you're prone to drop one of those balls. You're prone to make a mistake. And I feel, because of the challenges I've taken against government, against chief officers, and indeed against my own staff association, the Police Federation of England and Wales, I don't feel that if I drop the ball, however, inadvertently or well meaning that issue may have been, I don't feel I would have been supported by the organisation. And it places me in a position where, if I don't feel supported by the organisation, I can't really give it the full commitment that I think that it should, or the people should, deserve.